Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sietti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT. thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 414 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
We just talked about it on our Patreon episode for this week, but we're both having a good week.
Yeah.
I'm happy and excited because my kids are coming home this Saturday.
Yeah.
And they've got a couple of weeks off from school. They're going to be home, so that's always cool.
Going to force you to come out of this basement.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But I will to see them.
That's a good thing.
Let's go ahead and do our Patreon shout-outs. We had Rizza.
Hey, Rizza.
Astrid Cox.
What's going on, Astrid?
Brooke Marshall.
Thanks, Brooke.
Lee Linder jumped down to our highest level.
Oh, you're awesome, Lee.
Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Jimmy Schneider.
What's going on, Jimmy?
Michelle Carmichael.
There's Michelle.
Miranda B.
Oh, good old Miranda.
Sally Shepman.
What's up, Sally?
Tyler 1015M.
Well, thanks, 1015M.
Which is very specific.
It's very.
And last but not least, the machinist Gardner.
Well, thanks, Gardner.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Jeff Harden Jr.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, appreciate the new support, the continued support, all of that. So Gibbs, we have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, and we're going back over 100 years to talk about Bella Wright. Bella was riding her bicycle to visit a relative when she encountered this man on a green bicycle. Some witnesses saw them together. Then hours later, her body was found, but police identified this guy. So there's a ton to get into. I don't want to give too much away. I want people to check this episode out because it's about as close to being solved as an unsolved case can be.
Sure. Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am.
We're starting part one of a two-parter on Canadian serial killer Bruce McArthur. This is a guy who is a grandfather who worked as a landscaper and a mall Santa. But for nearly 8 years, McArthur lived a secret life as a serial killer, primarily targeting men in the gay village, an LGBTQ plus friendly area of Toronto.
A mall Santa.
You know, I did watch Bad Santa
Yeah.
the other day. I hadn't seen it in a while, and I forgot how raunchy that movie is.
Is that the one with Billy Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a raunchy movie.
Yeah, not one for the whole family.
No, not a Christmas movie for the kids by any means. And, you know, what I really found strange and interesting about Bruce McArthur was that, most of his victims were either South Asian or Middle Eastern men who struggled with their sexuality. Some of the victims dealt with addiction and homelessness. But, to target specifically South Asian or Middle Eastern men, that seems kind of strange to me from a serial killer perspective. Not something that we've seen a lot of.
It's not typical.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, people have their type.
Right.
And when I say people, not just serial killers, right? Everybody has their type. Whether you're talking about dating or whatever it is, serial killers do as well.
Sure.
But most of the time we see, that it's a specific gender or the person might have a specific trait. I don't know that we've seen very often someone targeting people specifically from a region outside of where they live.
If you were one, would you target, I don't know, what would your target be like?
If I was one, meaning a serial killer?
Yeah.
So you want to play devil's advocate on me being a serial killer? And you want me to say who I would target?
I think you'd probably target podcast co-host in their mid 40s to 50s, maybe slightly older. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Could be wrong.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know how anybody would answer that question.
Well,
and
technically they should not.
If they were being honest, then everybody should be scared of that person.
Absolutely.
So in part 1 of the Bruce McArthur episodes, we'll cover the police investigation and how McArthur was first identified in connection with missing men, rumors about the missing men, and a possible serial killer in Toronto's gay village. Started in 2010. 40-year-old Skandara Navaratnam went missing on September 6th, 2010. He was last seen around 2 a.m. with 2 men at Zipper's nightclub near Church and Carlton Streets in the village. The police believe he was murdered that day. A friend reported him missing on September 16th after not hearing from him for days. And I think that's a little different than what we normally see in a lot of the episodes that we cover. That's 10 days before this person was reported missing.
I think when you're single and you don't have that daily interaction with people at home, I think that distance of time can occur.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variables, right? How much family do you have? How close are you with that family? How often do you speak with them?
Yeah.
Are you single, alone? You don't live with anybody? Are you not going into a specific, work site where they're going to miss you? A lot of different variables involved. But, I did say early on that McArthur targeted South Asian and Middle Eastern men. So we are going to be talking about a lot of people with names that are a little harder to pronounce than, let's say, a normal episode. And we struggle in most of our episodes, let's be honest.
You really do.
I really tried to go out of my way to listen to a bunch of pronunciations of these names, but like I always find, they're all over the map.
Sure, yeah. I'm here to help you.
Well, you always are. Skandara Navaratnam, who went by the nickname Skanda, was a charismatic man who loved animals and was an environmentalist. Now, you love animals.
I do love animals.
You also have called yourself an environmentalist. I don't know what you do for the environment, but
drive a truck.
You drive a gas guzzling truck, but you think of yourself as an environmentalist. But, people always get on some of these billionaires who are always talking about the climate and the environment, but yet they are jetting all around the world.
Hey, when I jet, I only use one engine. I don't use both.
just to save on.
To save on, help the environment.
Okay.
I should say, hey, turn that other engine off, pilot.
Safety be damned.
Yeah, that's right.
Skanda was an immigrant from Sri Lanka. According to the CBC, his brother described him as a jovial character in their family. He wanted them to have a better life and financially supported them while he was living in Canada.
Jovial. Haven't heard that in a long time.
And you probably won't hear it.
You're probably exactly right.
I don't think people consider you all that jovial.
Nor should they.
No, it's a word that a lot of people don't use anymore. But I think, are we getting into why maybe it took so long for someone to report him missing? It sounds like he's in Canada sending money back home to family in Sri Lanka. So maybe the only people to miss him quickly would be the friends that he had made in Canada.
Yeah.
Skanda was always willing to help others. His friend Kevin Nash recalled a time when his son was briefly missing, and Skanda got on his bike and drove around nearby parks looking for the boy. Skanda went missing over Labor Day weekend in 2010. And we said it, right? He was at Zipper's nightclub and last seen with an unknown man. A few months later, a second man disappeared from the gay village on December 29th, 2010. 44-year-old Abdul Basir Faizi called his wife and told her that he was working late. However, he was last seen at Steamworks, a bathhouse in the gay village. The police believe he was murdered on the day he went missing.
You ever taken a steam?
No, I don't know that I've ever taken a steam. I thought you were going to ask me if I've ever been to a bathhouse.
Well, that was my next question. If you've taken a steam, was it at a bathhouse, like one of those Turkish
that's why I have to take
or...
my time answering these questions from you, because I feel like I'm getting ready to open myself up to something. I think I've been in a sauna.
Yeah.
But I've never, is that a steam? Is that the same thing?
Sweat, I think.
I know. It's a little, I don't know the differences of some of these things.
Take a steam, it's going to be a little more foggy.
Steam room, right?
Steam room. You'll see hot moisture jetting out at you.
Yeah, no, I've only ever done like the wood encased sauna type thing.
Hot sauna boxes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that movie Eastern Promises?
It sounds familiar.
But I can't remember his name. Good actor.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you started this conversation up then.
But there's a big fight scene.
Is it Clive?
No, it's the he does a movie called Hidalgo or something. Where he rides a horse across
Hidalgo.
Yeah.
You talking about Vito Morgan?
Yeah, that's him.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is great podcast. I got to be honest with you.
But he was in this movie called Eastern Promises, where
you got that part.
He got in a big fight inside the bathhouse.
Okay. So was that worth it? Was that worth it?
Probably not. If I could pull it back, or I'd say edit it out. But you'd like to leave this in.
Oh, I'm leaving that in. Faizi's cousin reported him missing to the Peel Regional Police on December 30th. Abdul Basir Faizi was a funny and intelligent man who loved his two daughters. He had been married since 1999. A friend recalled that the last time they spoke, Faizi said he was working overtime to buy Christmas presents for his children.
Oh, dedicated guy.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of parents out there who do. Christmas is expensive. I don't think there's anyone who would argue with that. Now, some people spend more, some people spend less. Some people go overboard spending money they don't have. I mean,
True.
We've all done probably a mixture of all those things. The one thing I will say is that, a lot of the things that your kids put on their Christmas list can be very, very expensive, and you start to see those pile up on there. You're like, oh, well, you're not getting all that, but you might have to work overtime or even a second job to pay for some of that stuff.
Yeah, especially as your kids get older, the gifts get more expensive.
But Abdul Basir was living a secret life. He was hiding his sexuality from his family. According to the CBC, Faizi spoke to a childhood friend about the possibility that he was gay while he was still living in Iran. His friend told him he was in the wrong place to be gay and he should, quote, try to find God or leave.
Well, I think he's right. Probably not the right place to
be openly gay.
Yes.
Iran.
Right.
Doesn't sound like it from what this guy was saying. On January 4th, 2011, the police found Faizy's car abandoned on Moore Avenue in the area of St. Clair Avenue East and Mount Pleasant Road. When speaking to the police, Faizy's wife said her husband had no enemies. He wasn't involved in criminal activity and spent most of his time working or with family. He seemed happy and was looking forward to going on vacation. They weren't having any financial problems at the time. The police took the family's computer as part of the investigation. As quoted by the CBC, his wife learned that her husband was living a double life and having numerous extramarital affairs with men. The investigators felt that he abandoned his family and didn't want to be found.
Probably a confusing time for the family. Hearing this, wondering, well, wait a minute, what's really going on here?
Well, number one, I think if you're a wife that finds this out about your husband, that's going to be a startling revelation. But here it's on the heels of him going missing. And then I think, this presents kind of a quandary for the police. Is this guy really missing, or does this information mean that he was already kind of leading a second secret life, and he decided that he was going to abandon his family for that life? Now, I don't think it's right to assume stuff like that.
Of course, yeah.
And the research didn't say that the investigators did. It said they felt that could be the case. His wife made attempts to locate him by sending emails and reaching out to friends, both at home and abroad. None of them knew about Faizy's secret life. His cell phone was soon disconnected. So that is truly a secret life. Sounds like he didn't share that with anyone.
For whatever reason. Maybe he was scared because of the religious side of it, or
maybe he was scared of losing his family.
Yeah.
Maybe he just didn't feel like there was anyone in his life who he could entrust with that information. I don't know. His wife later initiated divorce proceedings to get custody of the children. She wrote in one court filing per the CBC, "I believe Abdul Basir Faizy has abandoned his family, including his children. I believe he is avoiding all responsibility to his family, both emotional and financial. He is avoiding completing a divorce and seeing and supporting his children." So it sounds like his wife and the police kind of thought he's still alive, but he voluntarily left. Detective Marie Catherine Marceau from the Peel Regional Police was investigating the disappearance of Abdul Basir Faizy. She told colleagues there might be a serial killer in the gay village, and she was laughed at. She tried to contact the Toronto police, but didn't get a call back. She sent an email comparing Faizy's case to other disappearances in the gay village and received no response. The Toronto police told the BBC there was no record of the correspondence.
Well, it's probably good there was no record, because it wouldn't look good for you if there was some records.
Well, maybe there was a record at one point, and that record miraculously disappeared.
It got Ray Donovan.
It got Ray Donovan after the serial killer aspect came out. I mean, I get it. You have this theory that there's a serial killer. Are some people going to be skeptical? Yeah, I could see that. Now, being laughed at, I don't know. If you've got quite a number of people who are going missing from this same locale, is it that far-fetched to think that there might be a serial killer involved?
Not at all.
Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. You know, once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. Nearly 2 years later, on October 18, 2012, 58-year-old Majid Cayenne was last seen by a friend near Alexander and Yonge Streets. Authorities believed he was killed on or about this day. So this is the third individual that we're talking about, and all three, the police believe they were murdered the same day they were last seen. So what does that mean?
If this is being done by the same person, they're killing them pretty quickly.
Yeah, this is not a person that is taking their victims and keeping them somewhere for a period of time before killing them. Cayenne's adult son reported him missing on October 25th. Majid Cayenne moved to the gay village after his marriage broke down. He lived on Church Street and frequented bars in the area. Sources didn't really have a lot to say about his life, but we do know that he had many older siblings, nieces, and nephews. He had 2 children and 3 grandchildren. He told his friends he was in a relationship with the man, but his family knew him as his roommate. His family maintains that Cayenne was not gay.
I don't know if he was or wasn't, but that would be hard for some family members to come to terms with.
I think it can be. I mean, I kind of feel like the signs point to him being in a relationship with a man. I mean, he moved to what is known as the gay village.
Right.
And he apparently told friends that he was in a relationship with the man. In November 2012, the police created a task force called Project Houston to investigate the disappearances of Skandarov Navaratnam, Abdul Basir Faizi, and Majid Cayenne. On September 17, 2012, the police obtained the first judicial order of Project Houston, which was a tracking warrant for a vehicle. The task force would obtain 40 more warrants during its operation. So, it's obvious, Gibbs, that we went from a point of, one officer saying, I think it's possible we have a serial killer. She was laughed at, to a task force being established? Was that because, the numbers increased or, just more signs started to point to that fact? I don't know, but obviously at some point in time, someone made the decision that they thought a task force was warranted. On December 20th, 2012, the police obtained a general warrant for a residence in London, Ontario, owned by James Alex Brunton. Brunton was investigated as a suspect in the disappearance of Skandarov Navaratnam. At least 6 other judicial orders were obtained in connection to Brunton.
They must have really thought they had something here.
Yeah, connected to this James Brunton guy for sure. Now, he was later ruled out as a suspect in the disappearances, but he did plead guilty to child pornography charges in January 2014. On November 11, 2013, Bruce McArthur was first interviewed by the police after an analysis of Skanda Navaratnam and Abdul Basir Faizi's belongings indicated they connected with him on a dating site.
So they got some common ground here.
Sounds like it. Now, we know he's eventually going to become a key suspect in the investigation of the missing men, but what first put him on the radar? A connection with 2 of the missing men based on a dating site. And this is what we talk about, all the time. Whether you're talking about serial killers or someone who's plotting a one-off murder, this electronic trail that we all leave every day.
True.
Yours is probably one of the scariest ones of all. I'd hate to see the full breadth and width of it.
I do that to throw people off.
Oh, so you visit certain sites just to throw people off. But, in all seriousness, the question at least comes up to me a lot. I mean, how do people not know that eventually, that kind of connection or that electronic trail, whatever you want to call it, is going to catch up with them? If you're killing people that you met on a dating site, you don't think they're going to go back, investigators, and look at, what these people were doing before they went missing, who they were talking to, what's on their computer?
Well, I think some people just don't clue into that. I think people are more aware of it today.
Yeah, probably. Over the last 10 years, I'd say so. But we're not talking about 1950 here, right? Or 90s. This was 2012, 2013. It wasn't the initial stages of the internet. Like nobody knew, what police could gather, I guess. Thomas Donald Bruce McArthur was born on October 8th, 1951 in Lindsay, Ontario. He was the second child of Malcolm and Islay McArthur. Bruce grew up on a farm near Argyle. His mother and father had a good reputation in the community. They were foster parents to troubled children from Toronto who came to their farm to get out of the city.
The farm life, man, that will straighten you out.
Well, we've talked about it many times. There's going to be a lot of work to do. Marianne McEachern, a family friend who grew up with Bruce, told the National Post there was always kids coming and going. Lots of times there would be maybe 6 to 10. I never heard any of those kids ever complain about being there. That is a lot of kids to kind of foster.
It is, but it sounds like they were happy while they were there, if they're not complaining about it.
Well, I'm taking that to mean they were treated well. According to the Canadian Encyclopedia, Bruce's father was Presbyterian and his mother was Catholic, which caused some division in the home. Bruce often sided with his mother, which made his father angry. Bruce later told a therapist that he believed his father suspected he was gay and tried to suppress this through manual labor. He felt like his dad gave him an unfair share of the farm labor, and he resented him for this.
You can always tell when a parent gives you more work than somebody else.
Than one of your other siblings,
Yes.
or treats you differently.
Yes.
Like the youngest often gets away with more. The oldest is asked to do more, maybe punished more. That happens in certain families. But, I really want to focus in on this idea that Bruce thought his father suspected he was gay and was trying to suppress it or kind of force it out of him through manual labor. And I'm not so sure there weren't quite a few men back during the time frame that we would be talking about here who might have thought like that this was more of a choice that they could influence as opposed to the kind of the knowledge that we have today.
Yeah, I remember hearing about certain camps like this, that the objective was to work it out of them.
Bruce was an average student. According to Ron McEachern, who attended school with him, he was the teacher's suck. He never got into any trouble. Like, we were in a one-room school. Boys. We done shit. He was always sucking up to the teacher. If we got into trouble, he'd run in and squeal on us. He just wasn't like the rest of the boys. I have never heard that term. The teachers suck.
Yeah. You never heard that, huh?
No, have you?
Actually, I have ever since I've been going up to Canada. You hear it
Oh,
up there.
okay. Well, maybe that's a Canadian type of term. I've never heard it. I mean, that could be taken, a bunch of different ways.
Absolutely.
But obviously, it's kind of like teacher's pet, maybe, or suck up, I think is what they're trying to say.
Right.
For his senior yearbook entry, Bruce said his favorite pastime was a good argument, and his ambition was to be successful.
Well, you like a good argument, as long as you win.
Well, I win most of them, but I do like a good argument every now and then. Now, I don't like to start them, but if someone starts one with me, I have no, qualms about jumping in and actually kind of relish in the back and forth.
Yeah, you're a very confident arguer.
Orator. He wrote about his future. Your guess is as good as mine. So, what's your ambition? To be successful. Well, who doesn't want to be successful? How are you going to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
After high school graduation, Bruce completed a 2-year business course at college in Barrie, Ontario. When he was 23, he married Janice Campbell, who attended the same high school. They had a son named Todd and a daughter named Melanie. Bruce and Janice moved away from Lindsay after graduation, but they went back to visit Bruce's parents often. And both of Bruce's parents died relatively young. His mother died of cancer in 1978. She was only 49. His father died of a brain tumor in 1981. He was only 59.
That is young.
Bruce started working as a buyer's assistant for Eaton's department store in downtown Toronto. This position led to a job as a traveling salesman for McGregor Hosiery.
Remember when George's dad was trying to get into, was it hosiery?
He developed the man's ear.
The man's ear, yes.
Yeah. In 1986, Bruce and Janice purchased a house in Oshawa. Bruce and the family moved to Oshawa, Ontario, and he later became a merchandising representative for Stansfield Limited, a clothing manufacturer. So Bruce appeared to be a pretty normal family man, right? He kept a steady job. He was active in his local Presbyterian church, but there were problems at home.
So doing well everywhere but at home.
It sounds like it. I mean, he jumped from job to job some, but don't we all? And I think a lot of the problems that he had at home were due to the fact that he came out to Janice in the early 1990s and admitted that he had been with men during their marriage.
It'd be a tough conversation to have.
It would be. I mean, anytime, I think, as a spouse, you're admitting infidelity, that's going to be a tough conversation. But this is a different dynamic. This is a man admitting to his wife, not only that he's had affairs, but these affairs were with other men in the late 1990s. Bruce began a relationship with a married man that would last 4 years. Bruce and Janice separated in 1997, and he moved to Toronto in 1998. In 1999, Bruce saw a psychiatrist as a result of difficulties coping with the breakup of his marriage and his first gay relationship. He also declared bankruptcy that year. Bruce experienced financial difficulties when he lost his job and had to pay for his son's legal expenses. Then it was reported that as a teen, his son Todd got into trouble for making obscene phone calls to women he didn't know. He eventually received dozens of convictions for harassment and making indecent phone calls. In 2014, Todd was sentenced to 14 months in jail after he confessed to making multiple obscene phone calls to a stranger at her workplace. He was already on probation for 2 similar charges when he committed the offense. His lawyer told the court he was diagnosed with telephone scatologia.
Scatologia.
And had been treated for this illness for at least a decade.
I think it'd be hard to do those type of calls with caller ID and...
Yeah, we're not talking the 1980s here, 1970s.
No, yeah.
This is 2014.
It's kind of risky making calls like that today.
Well, and it sounds like he knew it was risky. He had already been convicted. He was on probation for 2 similar charges. It was almost like he had the compulsion, though, and he couldn't stop. I've never heard of telephone scatologia. I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly. Usually scat refers to feces, so I'm not really sure the origin of that word, but
look at you breaking down the word.
What do they call that? The etymology? I don't know what the right word is, but
I think it's funny that you're asking me.
It is. I'm sure I got it wrong anyway. Todd's condition was linked to depression and could be associated with his first sexual experience. He said he had an explicit conversation on the phone with an older woman when he was just 11 or 12 years old. And I don't think you can downplay what experiencing adult type behavior at such a young age can do to somebody. It's kind of what I worry about today with the ease of access with, to pornography on the internet. I don't know, how many kids are seeing things they shouldn't be seeing at the age that they are.
Too many for sure.
I'm sure that it is. And what is it going to do to them down the line? Todd was warned that if he offended again, he would go to federal prison. In the fall of 2017, he was charged with new counts of indecent telecommunication, criminal harassment, and breach of probation. He was released on bail and ordered to stay with his father in Toronto. So I said, Bruce is having financial issues. He's having to pay for, some of his son's legal fees. Sounds to me like some of these legal fees could have been quite extensive for the amount of trouble that he was getting into. At Todd's sentencing hearing in 2014, the Crown noted that Todd had extremely supportive parents and came from a, quote, healthy middle-class family. And I'm sure they were seen as a kind of a normal middle-class family. Does seem strange, though, that Todd, who's in all this trouble, is released to his dad's custody to live with his dad, who is later going to be found to be a serial killer.
It is strange.
In December 2000, McArthur and his wife sold their house in Oshawa. According to the National Post, it's not clear whether Bruce and Janice were ever legally divorced. It seems like they maintained a pretty positive relationship. After the separation, Bruce was referenced in her parents' obituaries in 2003 and 2007. And Janice attended his sister's anniversary party in 2017.
Well, it sounds like they probably had a decent relationship then.
And a lot of people do. They realize that they can't make it work, a marriage. They don't want to live together. But it doesn't mean that they at some level still don't love each other, or at the very least can be civil and, have a good relationship for the sake of their children or just in general. Bruce's Toronto apartment had 3 bedrooms. He had a roommate and he saved a room for Todd. A friend of Todd's once came to visit while Bruce was away and found disturbing photos in the bathroom attached to Bruce's room. This friend told the Toronto Star there was a lot of developed photos of naked men with erections.
It was probably shocking to find.
Yeah, I don't know how old this guy was, but there's also, the sense that, well, this is my buddy's dad. He's divorced. He may not have had any idea. I don't think, probably didn't, that Bruce was gay. So yeah, I think could have been a little shocking. Todd told him these were men his father knew. When the photos were mentioned at breakfast, Bruce laughed it off. Okay. So it doesn't sound like it was that awkward of a conversation for him.
Just kind of got past it.
Hey, you're in my house, man. You want to use my bathroom? You're going to see pictures of men's erections.
That's just going to happen.
That's just part of the deal. But is that any different, Gibbs, than, you go to use like your buddy's bathroom and his dad's got a Playboy in there?
Oh, yeah. Not that strange.
No. Now, when you're 10, it's confusing.
Yeah.
But when you're an adult and he's got a Playboy in there. I'm sure it's just for the articles, but whatever.
I mean, I've used this bathroom here downstairs, and there's things in there that I'm really not sure, but I don't say anything because, it's your bathroom. What you do in your bathroom is between you and that bathroom.
Yeah. What happens in the bathroom stays in the bathroom.
Exactly.
Bruce frequented bars in Toronto's gay village. Some men who dated McArthur said he had normal sexual interests, but others said he enjoyed BDSM and rough sex. And I think I think obviously there are quite a few people who are into this kind of BDSM lifestyle. I don't understand it all because it's not something that I've ever been into. I don't really think I would enjoy like one of those ball gags in my mouth or, anything like that, or being zipped up in a leather hood, or I'm trying to think of things I've seen in movies that might be, or being whipped. I don't want to be hurt in any way.
Just the fact that you said ball gag in your mouth. That's
I guess I'm kind of thinking Pulp Fiction is about the extent of my knowledge.
Oh man. I hope that when you play this back later, your wife hears that. I just want her to hear that.
Well, she'll hear me say, I don't know anything about it. Some people who knew him or had dated him thought he was obsessive and controlling, but his friends said they saw no signs of anger issues or aggression. But does that surprise you at all?
No.
I mean, how many times have we talked about serial killers who, to their friends and family, were the absolute complete opposite of how they were with, their victims, or really what their true nature was? They were playing a part to all these other people, showing them the good side. Even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details.
Hey, listeners, it's Leon Nafok. I'm here to tell you about a brand new series from me and Prologue Projects, an Audible original series called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer, the story of a television show that changed the world and the man who gave it his name. But did you know that before the Jerry Springer Show made him notorious all over the world, Springer was something else entirely? A respected Midwestern politician, the progressive mayor of a major Rust Belt city, a man many saw as a future leader in Democratic politics. How did this idealistic rising star, with his lofty political ambitions, take a turn in such a radically different direction? You can find the whole series available now on Audible. Just search for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer on the Audible app, or go to audible.com/Springer.
According to Robert James, who got to know Bruce in the gay village, Bruce often expressed sadness over the fact that his son didn't accept his sexuality.
Well, I can see how some sons could struggle with that.
Yeah, I could see it. You know, if you thought that, your dad was this family man, and then at some point you found out that he was gay, I'm sure some people in that situation would struggle with it. But it sounds like, at least from what, Bruce was telling people, that his son never really fully accepted it. I can understand, it being shocking when you first found out, but over the years, it sounds like he just never really accepted it. Eventually, Bruce started seeing a psychiatrist and was prescribed Prozac. He also took a muscle relaxer that he said he used as a sex aid. And it seems like that would have the opposite effect of being a sex aid.
Maybe there were just some muscles that he needed to relax.
Yeah, I'm kind of latching on to that now, as you say it. In 2003, Bruce started a landscaping business called Artistic Design. He developed a large client base, mostly consisting of older, wealthy women. Bruce couldn't store his equipment in his apartment, so he made a deal with a few of his clients. He agreed to work for free in exchange for storage space. Bruce occasionally hired workers. Some of them were South Asian or Middle Eastern men. Bruce first got into legal trouble on October 31st, 2001, when he assaulted a man with a metal pipe outside the victim's home. 36-year-old Mark Henderson was walking home when he was attacked. He was unlocking his apartment door and felt a blow to the head. He saw the attacker lift the pipe over his head and felt multiple blows.
Well, metal pipe will definitely do some damage.
Yeah, to me, that's a very scary situation. You're attacked from behind while you're trying to open your door. Henderson told local news outlet W5, every muscle in his face was clenched. He was full of rage. Henderson was able to get into his apartment and call emergency services, and the attacker fled. McArthur turned himself in that afternoon. The police learned that he met the victim through a chat line, and they had sex twice. Bruce maintained that he blacked out before the assault and didn't know why he did it. According to court documents, McArthur admitted to consuming amyl nitrate, known colloquially as poppers, on that evening.
Some poppers.
Well, I don't know that I ever did poppers. Can't remember doing poppers, but maybe I did them and don't remember it because apparently he blacked out, or at least he said he did. But how strange is it, that he turned himself in?
Well, maybe he thought
it was just a matter of time anyway.
He was trying to just hedge it off.
I don't know. Maybe he realized what he had done and he felt sorry, but that would be kind of an anomaly, right? From what we're used to.
Right.
On January 29, 2003, McArthur pleaded guilty to one count of assault, causing bodily harm, and assault with a weapon. On March 19th, 2003, Dr. Marie-France Dion wrote a psychological report on McArthur at his lawyer's request to find out if a mental health issue could have led to the assault. Per the CBC, the psychiatrist found no sign of mental health problems that could have contributed to the incident and offered no explanation for the assault. There was a low risk McArthur would reoffend, and he showed absolutely no signs of psychopathy.
Okay.
I think there's very little doubt that that person was wrong on both accounts. According to CTV News, the assessment also stated his profile portrays an exaggerated striving to be liked, as well as a rigid, intense compliance to social conventions, tendencies to want to be seen as self-effacing and non-assertive are also apparent. On the surface, he expresses a strong sense of duty to obey and follow others, as if their expectations of him must not go unmet.
How do you feel about that description?
To be honest with you, it made me think of you. I feel like for as long as I've known you, you've always strived to be liked and to really meet the expectations of the people around you.
Been a tough go.
What, to be liked and to meet all these expectations?
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I'm being pretty serious, strong sense of duty. I feel like, and most of this comes from us working together,
sure,
but you always had that. Now, I'm not saying you're a serial killer or anything like that. On April 11, 2003, McArthur was sentenced to 2 years of probation, a 6-month curfew, and a 10-year weapons prohibition. He was forbidden to possess the muscle relaxer, amyl nitrate, and was barred from the gay village for the period of his probation. He was also ordered to take anger management counseling and submit his DNA to a database. So he only got probation, but there was a lot of stuff that kind of went with it, right? A 6-month curfew, 10-year weapons ban.
It's a long time.
He's not allowed to own this muscle relaxer. And for the whole 2 years, he's barred from the gay village.
And he's got to take anger management.
And submit his DNA to a database. So that's a lot that goes with it, but you're not going to actually spend time incarcerated or any more time than he might have.
I don't like when you got to take those courses, like anger management.
Remedial driving, any of those types.
All that stuff, yeah.
The Crown and defense entered a joint submission for a conditional sentence. The Crown believed it wouldn't be in society's interest or Mr. McArthur's interest to have him go into jail at this point in time. Now, obviously, Gibbs, they're going to look back on that as a mistake, but it's kind of hard to know at that point that this guy is or is going to become a serial killer.
True.
The Toronto Star quoted McArthur at his sentencing hearing, "My life's been kind of a mess in the last year and a half. Knowing what's going to happen and what's happened to me, I'd like to apologize to the victim. I wouldn't know what to say other than I'm sorry for all the pain and anger I've caused him." So I don't know. I get the feeling that, maybe he's saying this stuff for the benefit of the court, to benefit him, but they're also, unlike many serial killers, seems to be something different about Bruce McArthur. He voluntarily turned himself in. Now, I know he didn't kill this guy, but he's apologizing. I mean, how many times we talk about people saying the F word to the victims and flipping them off and doing all these things? This is not this guy.
It's almost like he has a level of compassion.
Or he feels bad.
Or he feels bad.
Or he's putting on an act. But he didn't have to turn himself in. That part's kind of still throwing me. After his probation ended, McArthur resumed frequenting bars in the gay village. He made accounts on dating sites. He preferred submissive men and wrote that he likes to push a guy's limits. Okay, that's a pretty broad statement, and one that, quite frankly, might scare a lot of people, should scare a lot of people. So now let's focus on McArthur's interview with the police on November 11th, 2013, right? This is back to him being linked with two people through a dating site. McArthur explained that he knew Skanda Navaratnam from a group he socialized with at a Toronto bar called Black Eagle. He denied having a sexual relationship with Skanda. However, sources report that McArthur met Skanda in 1999 and that they had a romantic but non-monogamous relationship in the early 2000s. Skanda worked for McArthur's landscaping business at one point. The two continued seeing each other over the years. Another friend of Skanda's met McArthur in 2008 or 2009. This friend wasn't surprised. He was seeing McArthur because Skanda liked older men. The two were Facebook friends. McArthur was active on social media. He shared recipe videos, cat pictures, and posted photos of his children and grandchildren, as well as photos of him working as a mall Santa. I mentioned that, right? He worked as a mall Santa.
Yeah. Would you ever do that?
Work as a mall Santa or post any pictures to Facebook? Because the answer is the same to both. It's no.
No and no.
No, but again, I'm getting such a different vibe from this guy than I think we have gotten from a lot of serial killers. Yes, they want to blend in. They don't want to stand out. But how many of them are sharing recipe videos and cat pictures on Facebook? I don't know how many. McArthur admitted to knowing Cayenne. Since 2003, he did landscaping for Cayenne, and they had a sexual relationship, which he said he broke off. McArthur was not considered a suspect at this time. So, he went through the interview process. He must have done pretty well in explaining, yes, I did know these people. I had sexual relationships with these people, but I don't know what happened to them. The task force, Project Houston, shut down in April 2014 due to a lack of criminal evidence. On June 3rd, 2014, McArthur was granted a record suspension from the Parole Board of Canada in connection with his 2003 conviction. This meant his record was essentially expunged. But just a little over a year later, another man went missing. On August 15, 2015, 50-year-old Soroush Mahmoudi was last seen sleeping in his apartment on Markham Road in Scarborough, Ontario. He didn't show up to work later that day. Investigators believe he was killed on or about this day. Mahmoudi was described by friends as a jokester. He enjoyed camping and soccer. He moved to Canada as a refugee. When he was 20 years old, he didn't have any family until he met his wife. He worked at an auto parts factory until 2008, then started working as a taxi driver. He later moved to the Toronto area to be closer to his wife's family. Soroush's wife reported him missing on August 22nd. And I was looking at this timeline and I found it a little bit strange because it was 7 days since he was last seen before his wife reported him missing. Now, we talked about, some other people who didn't have family.
You can make that work out. You can make sense of that because they don't have anybody dependent on them every day.
And less people to notice that they're missing.
Yeah.
But you would think if you got a wife and you're seeing her on a regular basis, that maybe the report would come sooner. Maybe there's something to it that wasn't in the reporting. But
well, yeah, maybe there's something we just don't know.
Yeah. In August 2015, the family of 37-year-old Krishna Kumar Kanagaratnam spoke to him over the phone for the last time. Krishna came to Canada in 2010. Hoping for a bright future, he arrived with 491 other Sri Lankans fleeing a civil war. He lost his youngest brother during an armed conflict in 2007. He worked odd jobs in Toronto and sent money home to his family. He was said to be the responsible one of all his siblings. In 2013, Krishna told a friend that his application for refugee status and his subsequent appeal were rejected. He remained in Canada, and over the next couple of years, he called his mother every day, but those calls stopped in August 2015. So, his family was worried, but they didn't report him missing because they thought he was in hiding and would be sent back to Sri Lanka if he were found. So that's a different scenario altogether.
It is. It really is.
They're receiving regular calls. The calls stop. They're worried, but they don't want to report him missing because they would have known that, his request for refugee status had been rejected. His appeal had been rejected. And they didn't want to put him on the radar because they're just going to send him home. And I'm sure they're not thinking the worst at that point, even though they're worried.
They have to be worried.
They're worried, but they also, like they said, thought, well, maybe he was just in hiding. The police believe he was murdered between September 15th and January 2016. In December 2017, his family posted on Facebook that they were looking for him. The police saw this post, and investigators said they had evidence linking Krishna to Toronto up to 2014. On April 22nd, 2016, 47-year-old Dean Lisowick was last seen after he was discharged from the extreme weather program at the Scott Mission on Spadina Avenue in Toronto. Authorities believe Dean was murdered on or about April 23rd. He was never reported missing. And Dean had a difficult life. He experienced mental health problems that led him to living in the streets, and he stopped keeping in touch with his parents. He occasionally sent his mother cards, but she died in 2011. So, I think here again, we're talking about a person in Dean Lisowick who didn't keep in touch with any of his family. So who was going to miss him to the point where they would report him missing?
There's the problem.
Yeah. And it's probably why he was never reported missing. Dean regularly stayed in Toronto shelters and was a fixture in the gay village. He did sex work and was known for sticking up for others. His acquaintance, Michelle George, told the CBC if he saw someone being harassed or something like that, he was always the first one to come to the rescue. He was very street savvy, so it just baffled me that he, of all people, would be a victim. Dean had a daughter, but never met her. His cousin, Julie Pirro, said he had plans and goals and wanted to get his life together so he could buy his daughter a bike. Bruce McArthur had another brush with law enforcement on June 20th, 2016. That day, he asked a man he'd known for several years to meet him in his van in a parking lot. The man got into the back of the van, and McArthur asked him to lie down on top of a fur coat. He attempted to strangle the man, but the guy escaped and called emergency services.
He's known this guy for several years, and now he decides he wants to strangle him?
Yeah, you kind of wonder what was going through his mind. Was it a situation that we've seen with other serial killers where, it builds up to the point where, they need that release, and the release is killing.
Yeah.
And this is the person he singled out. I don't know.
It's like working with somebody for so many years, like 8 years. And, as you're going up the steps from their studio, you decide at that moment, this is the time.
Uh-huh. But then you realize that person is armed at all times, and you think better of it, and you just leave.
And you say, another day.
Another day. But it did seem strange. What also was strange was that, similar to the 2001 incident, McArthur went to the police station on his own, was arrested, and gave a statement.
It's really weird.
Again, it's almost like he does these things and then he feels bad about doing them, or he knows he's going to get caught because he knew this guy. Because in his statement, he said, well, this is all just a misunderstanding. And he was released without charges because authorities believed his statement was credible. So, I mean, I think with this one, and maybe with the other one too, because he knew that person.
Yeah.
I don't know if the person would have known it was him. That wasn't clear in the research. But this guy, I think, definitely would have known and was going to tell the police, most likely, hey, this guy tried to kill me or strangle me.
So he thought, I'll hedge it off.
Yeah, I'll get the jump on it. And it worked out because he gave, some story and the police believed him. They did a background check on him, but because his earlier conviction was expunged, nothing came up. And I think that's the problem with that way of doing things. Now, I understand if, you do stuff as a juvenile.
Yeah.
And that record gets expunged at a certain point. An officer later faced professional misconduct charges in connection with this incident. And they didn't really expand on that, but I'm assuming, that's going to be after it comes out that, Bruce McArthur is a serial killer.
Yeah.
And he did try to strangle this guy, but the police took his word. But we don't have all the details, but I'm assuming it was something around that. Like they didn't do the proper due diligence or something along those lines. Now, if it's not found out that he's a serial killer, this guy never gets in trouble. But somebody's got to face the music.
Of course.
Once all of that comes out. In part 2 of the Bruce McArthur episodes, we'll cover the final disappearances in the gay village, how McArthur was finally caught, and his later court proceedings. But, as we wrap this one up, Gibbs, here's a guy who was in trouble with the law, multiple times, got probation. It was expunged. That record was expunged, talked his way out of a second incident, which sounded pretty serious. He tried to strangle a man in his van on top of a fur coat. Not sure what purpose the fur coat served, but maybe it was meant to be like a makeshift bed.
Maybe, yeah.
But I'm all over the place with this McArthur guy.
I just wonder what would be different if he didn't turn himself in those few times.
I don't think anything other than maybe he would have killed more people.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who got married, either knew he was gay or realized he was gay at some point. We don't know exactly when. My assumption is when he said that his father suspected that he was gay, that Bruce McArthur knew from an early age that he was gay, but got married to a woman for whatever reason. Maybe it was to hide his sexuality. Men did that.
Sure they did.
He had kids. So he's having, these relationships with men, but multiple times feels as though he needs to attack men that he knows. And we've already said it, but some of his victims he knew, and he knew quite well.
Yeah. Weird.
And we'll get more into all of it in episode 2, but obviously we know he's a bad guy. He did terrible things. He killed, a large number of people, but he's also kind of a strange guy to break down. This turning yourself in thing is kind of foreign.
It is with these serial killers.
With serial killers. It's not that it never happens. It's just not something we see very often. And then it was almost like he may have had some remorse, or that was an act that he put on, but he goes to see a psychiatrist, right? And he's kind of pouring out his feelings. Now he's not saying he's killing people, obviously, but you're getting some insight into, the issues that he had with his dad. There's no doubt that he loved his mom, hated his dad, had issues with his dad. How much of that led to him becoming a serial killer? He had this very strange, inappropriate sexual experience with an older woman when he was like 10 or 11 years old. What did that do to his psyche? It's all stuff that we're going to have to
break down.
But more to come next week in the second and final part on Bruce McArthur. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hello, guys. It's Carrie calling from Grand Junction. I sent you some Enstrom's toffee last week, and you've probably gotten it by now. Hopefully you've eaten it, because I'm going to tell you the thing that makes it so special. And so like a few years ago, the Enstrom's toffee people had decided to fully automate their production. And so they had this like assembly line thing where they would shoot out the toffee, and then another machine would like layer the chocolate on top of it. And then that year was a catastrophe because none of the chocolate stuck to the toffee. It all peeled off. And like, so everybody had a box of like toffee and chocolate shards, and people were very dissatisfied, because usually the chocolate sticks, as you may have noticed. So they looked into it. They did a forensic investigation, and they figured out that the thing that creates fingerprints is also the magic in Enstrom's toffee. Finger oil is necessary to keep the chocolate adhered to the toffee. So they've unautomated the system, and now they have humans patting the toffee with their bare hands to flatten it out before the chocolate is applied so that the chocolate will stick. So again, I hope you've eaten it already. But regardless of whose fingers have touched it, it's delicious. Happy holidays. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
So I said last week when I mentioned it, I thought that's who it was. I thought it was Carrie, but I didn't want to say, because if I was wrong, I'd have felt bad. But it actually was very good. I didn't give you any. I actually kept it for myself.
Because you liked it.
I did. I ate both of the milk chocolate, and my wife ate both of the dark chocolate bars.
So it was coffee chocolate?
No, it was toffee.
Oh, toffee.
It was chocolate covered toffee.
Oh,
and it was really good.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to have like some type of rat poop story that was going to make me
like, why did I eat
sorry that I ate the toffee.
Why didn't I give it to Gibby?
No, it was very good.
And you don't know whose fingers touched it though.
But like she said, regardless of whose fingers touched it, it's very good chocolate.
Wait till I find a picture to show you who touched it.
Hi, this is Ashley. I've called a couple times. I'm over in Batavia, but I just finished your Patrick Purry episode from like 2019, and someone left a voicemail with a turkey gobble, and I'm so glad that I'm alone in the cat shelter I work at, because the laugh I let out would have probably terrified my entire staff of coworkers. That was the best thing I've heard ever, and she was so nonchalant about it. It just went straight into just continue talking. Anyways, keep your head on a swivel.
So I do remember that. It was funny. I thought when she started that voicemail, she was going to say that I made some comment about how 2020 was going to be a great year.
Yeah.
Because I know I said that on Patreon.
I know.
And people still bring it up. And obviously I couldn't have known that 2020 was going to be the year of COVID.
Yeah.
And change everything.
Tough prediction.
That's why I make no more predictions about how the next year's going to go, because you just don't know.
You don't. That's true.
But thanks for the voicemails. We appreciate them.
We do.
And that's it, buddy, for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
How did the internet go from this?
You could actually find what you were looking for right away, bang,
to this?
I feel like I'm in hell.
Spoiler alert, it was not an accident. I'm Cory Doctorow, host of Who Broke the Internet from CBC's Understood. In this 4-part series, I'm going to tell you why the internet sucks now, whose fault it is, and my plan to fix it Find Who Broke the Internet on whatever terrible app you get your podcasts.